I became terrified that I was going to shoot one as well.
Welcome along, everybody. My name is Tui Rufio. I'm the Executive Director of the Directors and Editors Guild. And tonight, this is a joint collaborative series initiative with the Writers Guild. So welcome Writers Guild members and everybody else. And if you're not members, you should be members of both guilds, perhaps. So have a think about it. Tonight, we have a very esteemed panel with us. These are very experienced and great practitioners of the craft of screenwriting, screen directing. And let me just introduce them briefly to you. But before I do, I just want to say that this Collaborator series is made possible by the New Zealand Film Commission's financial assistance, and we thank them for that. So I'll go along the table here. I'm sure many of you know Rob Sarkies, a writer and a director. Rob's very well known in New Zealand. His seminal film Scarface was now made many years ago, his first feature film, but before that he'd made a number of shorts. And he's gone on, he's one of the few directors in New Zealand who's actually made quite a number of feature films. Out of the Blue is another film that Rob has done, and Two Little Boys, his latest film. He's also worked a lot in television as a writer and as a director, and his most recent production was Consent, the Louise Nicholas story, which was a fantastic telefeature. And Rob has also worked on a very interesting drama series that happened a little while ago now called This Is Not My Life. Because these people are quite well known, I asked them to come up with something that not everybody knows about them. And Rob has told me that he rides the unicycle. And
can ride the unicycle. I don't actively. I didn't ride here on the unicycle.
And he plays the mandolin. Somewhat. Modestly, somewhat.
But not both at the same time.
Unfortunately. Moving on to Chris Dudman. Chris is a very successful advertising director. He has his own production company. I've known Chris for many years through television, and he is both a writer and director in television of documentaries and information programs. And more recently, the earthquake story, which was, The Day That Changed My Life. And Chris also was a writer and the director of Harry, which was on TV3 last year.
Year before,
year
maybe even.
Yeah. Chris has also made a number of very good short films that have travelled internationally to A-list film festivals, and he has some feature films in development right now. The thing about Chris that he told me that he didn't say everybody else knew was that he lived in Haast for 2 years, which is an interesting place to live. Next to Chris is one of our very good feature film screenwriters, Dianne Taylor. Dianne has she's written a couple of features that have been made. One was Apron Strings, which was a few years ago now, but she has a project that is in post-production at the moment, which was an Indian New Zealand co-production that she wrote, and which sounds like it will be very exciting and very good. And she has also come into the film industry from advertising, which she likes to keep a little bit quiet about. However, the thing that Dianne says that not many people know about her is that she never wanted to be a director. And finally, Caroline Grose, who's going to be our facilitator for the evening. Caroline has a very long and distinguished career. She's currently working now as a lecturer at Unitec in screenwriting, but she's been a director and dramaturg in the theatre, a director and writer for the screen. She was a studio executive for Fox Studios in Australia for many years, and in the area of creative project development, and she was also the head of development at the Film Commission a few years ago. She is a she's worked alongside writers and in development for a lot of that period of time, and continues to do so today. So, the thing that Caroline told me that not many people know about her is that she speaks German, but isn't German. So tonight, the topic of the conversation is voice versus vision, the writer and director dilemma. And Stephen Getaway and I spoke at length about this, about the idea of the writer wanting to have their voice come through on the screen. But at the same time, they're having to hand their baby off to the director, who's very concerned about their vision appearing on the screen. And sometimes the collaboration is fantastic, and sometimes it can be a little bit frictious. And that's the topic of tonight's panel discussion. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Caroline to get us underway.
Thanks, Terry. Welcome to everyone who's here tonight and to my colleagues on the panel, all of whom have slightly different experiences, I guess, with the writer-director balance. As Tui said, Dianne has never wanted to be a director, so she wears the writer's hat exclusively, and both Chris and Rob have variously worn the writer-director hat, and so have perspectives, I guess, from both of those points of view. But one of the things that I wanted to start with, because I think the writer-director collaboration is really fundamental and one of the most important collaborations in the film, in the production of any work. And it can be fraught, but it can also be amazing. And I think that everyone up here has had versions of those experiences. So the first question I wanted to ask everyone really was, from your point of view, when do you think the collaboration might best begin between writer and director? So Dianne, as a writer, what do you think?
It varies from project to project. I guess it depends whether you are the sort of writer who feels that you want to get a perfectly formed script, or as close to perfectly formed as possible, before you actually take it out to the world. I mean, the advantage of that is that you're sort of putting your best foot forward and can therefore attract, perhaps a better director than you might if you were going out with something at a very early stage. And that's been my thinking in the past, but now I'm more interested in earlier and earlier collaborations. So yeah, I think potentially the earlier the better.
What do you think that brings to it? Like, why have you changed your view on it?
Just more joint ownership.
Mm-hmm.
More. It's really easy to find out a long way down the track that, as much as you may have talked about the project, that you're not actually making the same film. It would depend. I mean, some directors just simply don't have a lot to offer at an early stage, but they can bring a lot more at a later stage. Mm-hmm. So it really depends on the mix of skills that you've got, sort of, collectively.
Yep.
But I love the idea of working not only with a director, but with a team, with bringing actors on really early, bringing your producer on really early. I haven't quite done that yet, but that's the direction that I want to head in.
Yep. And how about Chris? So what do you feel as a director? Like, when do you want to come onto something that you haven't written if you're working with a writer?
Probably quite late, actually.
Yep.
I was just thinking, if I put my director hat on, I'd go, give me a really good script.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It's
Yeah.
that I can really get excited about. It's almost there. Now I can really get my teeth into it. As a writer, though, I can understand trying to. Well, actually, I tend to, if I'm writing stuff, it tends to be for myself.
Do you find that it happens very often that you get a script like that? Give me a great script and I'll jump on it.
No, but often you get ideas that you think, wow, that's a good idea.
Yep.
So actually, even the idea can excite you.
Yeah.
And I think that can be quite if the idea, if you're excited by the idea and the kind of tone of the work or something,
right,
then getting involved early on can be quite something that you want to own it in some ways.
Yeah, because I suppose my main point with, if you've got a really well-developed script, but it's just not, and it's amazing, but it's not for you, that can be a difficult thing as well, you know,
Yeah.
like, it's just not your taste. I don't know, Rob, what do you think about?
Yeah, I mean,
getting
I'd
involved?
I'd love to be showered by incredible scripts that are ready to go into production, and I can just sort of kind of put my director's hat on and go and do them. But I think the reality is that, especially as you do more and more films, you realise that, I mean, if any films, your taste needs to gel with, you know, if you're going to put yourself into a film, even as a director at a late stage, you've either got to really love it and see its potential and really want to make it. Well, that's me anyway, because I just don't do anything at all if I don't love it. If I'm not, you know, just fully in there. And so I've never, sadly, never picked up a script and thought it was me. And interestingly, and that would include the Whale Rider script,
Right.
which I did some work on before Nikki came on
Yep.
on board. I don't regret that decision. You know, obviously Whale Rider, you know, we all know what happened to that. I don't regret it at all. I know that I made the right call with sort of pulling myself away from the project, because it actually wasn't me. You know, I'm a Dunedin boy. There wasn't enough that I could myself connect into that story. Doesn't mean I didn't appreciate or think the film was wonderful, or for that matter the script or witty was it was great. I just didn't have enough kind of connection points. So I end up, but I don't think this is ideal, sort of kind of always being there right at the beginning.
Right.
And love that, because it's not so lonely. You know, you can. The process, and I think the writers I work with enjoy it as well, because it's, I tend to kind of get involved with the writer at the point where either I've had an idea or a producer has had an idea or optioned some material, and we all sort of see potential in it, and there's a big phase of thinking about it and interrogating that idea, and maybe research as well if it's a real people sort of idea. That you can do very collaboratively with the writer, and then I go into a structuring phase with the writer, and I think that's very useful for a lot of writers who, every writer's different, but a lot of writers that I've worked with, they would say that their strength is more in the dialogue and less in the structural stuff. So to have someone to kind of be there for the structural stuff as well is really
so
good.
they're happy for that.
And then you can kind of leave them to it for a bit, because I think writers do need space. You don't want to write with someone sort of looking over your shoulder, or you can kind of co-write, but I mean mostly, in truth, co-writing I've done has been mostly with my brother, and generally he's been doing a lot of the source scenes, or I've been kind of giving the information for the source scene. He's been kind of writing up a first batch, and then I've been rewriting that and feeding it back to him, and then it's just a process of constant rewriting, but from the same germ, so right at the beginning. But it's not an efficient way to have a career. It just means long gaps between projects.
So it sounds like that early involvement of both parties in a project idea does seem to at least engender a sense of joint ownership. Would you say that, Chris, as well? Or
Definitely. I think you feel like you both own it, and I think if you're a director, you really need to feel like you own it.
Yeah.
And probably as a writer, you feel like you own it right from the get-go. And the struggle is to let it go.
That's right.
And you got this director comes along and goes, "It's mine. I'm going to make it all mine." And
I guess one thing I would say is that, as a writer, if you've got an idea, you need to be really certain that you do want to work with this director. I mean, you don't want to sort of say, "Oh, hey, let's do it together," and then get, a little way down the track where there's been a lot of collaboration and suddenly realise, "Oh God, I don't think I do want to work with this person." So there's pros and cons on it from the writing point of view, in terms of ownership, because
is it working with them, or is it just what they're the right fit for the material.
Well, that's
that
it.
you've
You
got.
need to be sure that they are the right fit
Yeah.
before you get too far down the track. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
I think that would be the thing for me if I haven't done that, is if I'm writing something and then handing it over, it's that the person taking it on understands it, is going to do it justice.
Yep.
And that basically, as opposed to running off and doing something. I think that would be terrible to watch that happen, from a writer's perspective.
Yes, and I think that's where the idea of it being potentially such a fraught relationship comes in. So,
I've seen that too.
Yep.
I haven't. It hasn't happened to me,
Yep.
yet. But I was involved in one of the short film pods a few years back, and I saw a project just kind of disintegrate before my eyes because because they weren't making the same film fundamentally. The director didn't really love the script, I think. He wasn't perhaps honest about that, but I think that was the fact of it.
Yes.
And so just wanted to change it, and didn't really understand at its heart what the script was about. And to me, that's the real kind of key to any successful writer-director collaboration. Because basically, if you both are on the same page with the essence of what you are trying to make, not the story, but the reason that you're making it, and the kind of the core guts of what this is about, and tonally how it feels. If you're on the same page there, then you're away. You'll fly together because you're starting from that same point. And I think when that happens, when you're both equally excited by the core of the material, what tends to happen is I think ego starts to kind of peel away from both, because both writers and directors, I think, certainly directors, they do have egos. They, it's part of, we've all got egos, but it's obviously not useful when you're in a collaborative relationship to be arguing because you want to win a point, right? What you want to be doing is arguing because you want the film to be the best film that it can be. And if you're arguing again to create, if you know what you're making, and then your arguments are all about making that and broadening it, sure, but really kind of making that, then I think, well, in my experience anyway, you can actually work with quite difficult people, and they're wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think actually sometimes that can be, it's about the trust, and you can see early on, you can just go, well, that's a lot better than it was on the page, and people can acknowledge that, or it's all gone awry. Yeah, it's like that's not what we meant or something. But if you're at odds, but the work is getting better and things are looking better, like when you've got an actor who brings something to the script and you just go, wow, then you're willing to work with difficult people over that sort of stuff because they're going to make you look better. So, and in the ego game, it's actually everybody's doing well out of that.
Yeah.
I think from the writer's point of view, you might be working 5-6 years, you've maybe done, 8 drafts or something, and you think you've got your script to the very best place, and then on the film that we've just made, we've decided to cut a fairly major character right out of it, just and I can see that was a really good decision for the film, so I'm not fighting for that character to stay in. I might have if the actor had performed a little better, but it just isn't working, and so he goes. I think as a writer you've got to be really careful what which battles you choose to fight. It's easy to just want to hold on to too much. You've got to really be prepared you've got to wear another hat, actually, I think, particularly when it goes into production, or more particularly at editing. Be able to come back into it and actually sit down and be able to watch the film and actually not even notice that a scene is gone almost because the film's working. It just didn't need it. So you don't, holding on to what happened to that or, and I think, it's a process that I wish you could come to maybe a little bit earlier, in the whole thing, but sometimes it does take until you can actually see something on screen to go, oh, that's not working.
I think it is that thing, it's like, we write it, then we direct it, then we edit it, and but really you are kind of writing it again in the edit, and you're just constantly trying to make the same thing in different forms at different points in the process.
And so, Rob and Chris, do you find it useful to have the writer come in at some point in the post-production, if it's a different writer to yourselves, come in the post-production and with a perspective on the story?
In all honesty, not. Like, I've never really learnt much. They're always the most terrifying screenings for me because I really, really want the writer that I've been working with to love what I've done with it.
Yeah.
Of course. That's sort of the most important thing of all, more so than the producer or anything. I was like, we worked together on this and we dreamed it together, and I want you to love it, and I don't want to let you down. But invariably, the comments that come back from those screenings they're sort of old comments. They're comments that they're notes that you've already kind of worked over when you were at script stage, and I really think, it doesn't mean, of course I always invite the writer and listen to what they have to say, and sometimes often there's useful stuff in there, but for me it's much more useful to have completely fresh, completely clear eyes that I trust kind of coming in and looking at it as a piece without the sort of the baggage of the words. Because the first thing I do when I go into the edit is chuck away the script.
No, I think the thing is that there's a point at which the writer needs to let go. It's like you get the similar thing with the cinematographer who comes to see the finished film and goes, where's that amazing shot that we did, that took 5 hours or whatever. And that is, at this point we've all moved on, and the person that you're actually working with most closely is the editor.
Yes.
And that person is like another writer, actually, I think. And they're looking at it all with fresh eyes, going, so now it's not that piece of paper and that script, it's like really concrete stuff about, so the actor that we've got looks like that and performs like that, and that building is that building rather than a possible building that you might, and all those realities of production suddenly is like, it was sunny, but now it's raining in that scene. What's going on? All that stuff is now the reality that you're dealing with, and you're dealing with that, or the editor's dealing with that, and trying to make that work. Understand? So it's kind of handing it on all the time, and you're just kind of trying to stay true to what it should be, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's tricky, yeah.
Yeah. From my point of view, it is a little. Well, the last film we've just shot, which we shot in India, I actually got the script and printed it out, and we had like a little ceremony the night before we started shooting. So I got it and wrapped it in this sort of ceremonial scarf and handed it over to the director. Okay, it's yours, because I knew that I wasn't going to be going, maybe we should just point the camera over there a little bit, so it was like his. But it hasn't quite sustained through the editing process.
Right, because when you got to the edit, he had a ceremonial process, which was placing it into a fiery pit and burning it. Because essentially it's literally what you do. If I know that I'm in trouble if I refer to the script when I'm editing, because it's at that point it's not through any sort of disrespect.
No, but that's
at that
true.
Point it's irrelevant.
Oh, you can't.
Yeah.
You
It is
can't go
irrelevant.
back to the script. But what you do go back to are what are the fundamental story beats that have to come through, and
that's when you can get angry as a writer.
But that's what I want to hold on to as the writer. It's like, oh my God, you just buried that beat.
Yeah, I agree.
What happened?
Yeah.
That was the big beat, and it's not happening. So I'm going to fight for that at the edit stage.
I think you're right.
It's not about going on page 76. You'll notice that that's not the line. gone.
I think you're right.
Yeah, but I will always fight for the clarity of the story and the character arc, because if that's not clear, you haven't got a film. I don't, it can look beautiful, but where's the story gone?
Pretty interesting, yeah.
So yeah, and in lots of ways it seems like there's a difference between the writer and their feedback and the script. Like, I totally understand why you don't want to look at the script in the edit, but the writer has had a long relationship with the story, so they probably, they would have some big picture story beats.
It's interesting. Like, sometimes like working with editors where, like the ending isn't working, right? So what you've got, the ending, let's say, for example, the ending isn't working, and the editor will steal something from the middle of the picture or something and place an image at the end and lop off, the last 5 minutes and goes, that's your ending, and you're like, there's a kind of clarity in that, or maybe there's just an ambiguity in that that's so much better as an ending. So they're integrally part of the writing.
But the editor might have kind of realised a story beat by making that complete change to something.
The editor's usually there telling you, you didn't do it.
I mean, I was talking earlier with Caroline and said, really the last thing as a writer that I want is for the director to just go out and shoot the script beat for beat, and then the editor edits it and you look at your script on the screen. I mean,
that's pretty much what we do, though.
Well,
we do try to do that. We go, that is as good as it can be on paper, I reckon. And then we start
but
from
for
there.
the writer, you want some surprises in it. You want some,
Well, that's where I think the logistics of filmmaking usually mean that you go out. The logistics of filmmaking are going to create surprises. That's true.
That's right.
But the logistics are also going to mean that, especially in New Zealand, you're not going to have enough time. You at least have to get the scene. Before you worry about kind of making it the most amazing scene ever, you've just got to get the fucking thing, and make it work. Make sure you capture something of the essence of it, and obviously the story beats within it.
I mean, you've got to have that story. But I'm just thinking, for example, there was a scene where this couple are seeking their daughter in the film, and they've followed someone up to a house and bang on the door. And they come out, they have a conversation, and then this real heavy dude comes out. And in the script, I can't even remember what he said now, but fuck off, or I'll call the police, or if you call the police, you're dead. And instead of having him say that, the director just got this guy just to bellow, like not use words at all, just so it was like, and that was like a real surprise, and it was great. That's what I mean by like just because the words are on the page doesn't mean they have to deliver them. If it's doing the same thing, and that's all it needed was just like this energy of someone like some sort of monster coming out. So like a few,
But I do agree with you, and that I'm always trying to make you're always trying to make the film better than the script, because otherwise that's always the aim, and some of the reasons it gets better than that is just because you're bringing living people into it. But I do think that if that's the aspiration for the writer, then there's certain types of writing that I find as a director I can really respond to, which are particularly in descriptions, sort of where something is, where there's an ambiguity in the writing, or I worked a lot with Graham Tetley when he was obviously alive, and he had this ability to write a description, big print, sometimes that was just very, very poetic. He actually read a lot of poetry and would often kind of read poetry to me as a sort of inspiration for a scene, which I sort of really loved. I'm not into poetry myself, but I'm into emotion, I'm into feeling, and that's what poetry, gets straight into. That's the really good poetry, gets straight into that stuff. So he would write a description that would actually be quite poetic and would not be a literal description of every shot that he expects to see, but it would be a description of a feeling. It would be evocation of a feeling. And I think if you can have some moments in your script, particularly I'd suggest at the start of a script, that allow a director to feel the feeling while they're reading it, and then allow them the freedom to translate that feeling into visuals, then you've got a chance for those visuals to truly transcend your words.
And are you talking about actually, with something like that, the way it's written onto the page, to leave space?
To leave space, to evoke and not tell. Yeah.
I mean, there's certain
Yeah.
scenes that I just aren't really that possible to write in a very detailed way, like, a party scene, for example. I just think it's all you might want to put down is a few lines on the page. Now that's the scene that might run for 4 minutes or something.
Well, that's true, but you can really get the director thinking if you put in your big print description in that party scene something surprising in it, something that you wouldn't expect to see or hear, for that matter, if it's a party at that particular party.
True.
You can and then you're reading it as a director, going, "Whoa, okay, it's sort of a party scene, but what is that rhinoceros doing?" I mean, I'm not just saying put random shit in for the sake of it, but it's get your readers kind of thinking, and as a director, that's just gold, because it fires your imagination. As of course, that stuff's got to be in there because the script demands it. But every party I go to, it's always unique. There's something unique about it. There's something that's a bit weird and or a bit interesting, or something
go to
that.
better parties than I do.
Maybe it's
Well,
about
you
the
go to
boring
house.
part.
We're not thinking house parties anyway. There's something about that person that's reflected in the environment. There's always something that you notice. Maybe I'm just sort of skulking in the corner, noticing things rather than actually having a good time.
Oh God. One of the things that I've noticed is that when you talk about collaboration, there are the good collaborations that make it to the end reasonably intact, where people sort of feel good about what's happened from beginning to end somehow. How do you think that those more successful collaborations come about, and how do you think you come to find your collaborators, and at what stage? Like how do you try and ensure you're on the same page? Like, what would your approaches be to that when you start hooking up with people, to potentially save some of that disappointment when the handover comes? Because it seems to me that the handover might not be so traumatic if you're kind of on the same page. Like, there'll be a bit of give and take, but not necessarily too much trauma. Just trust.
Yeah.
And how do you go for that?
I think that's actually like, you meet in a cafe.
Yeah.
If somebody's written material that means something to them and it resonates with you, you've got a common ground.
Yeah.
And then I think do you really feel like we share the same values? And you just like, what do you talk about the movies you like, what other parts of life, and you kind of feel like you're seeing life from the same way, or values.
Yeah.
You're thinking about characters in the same way. So you're finding common ground, and I think that's a good place to build. It's like a friendship, really. And from that point, you're going, well, we're both thinking about this, and if you're referencing other films or things, you're feeling like you're on the same page. You're liking the same kind of material. That helps, because I think you feel a simpatico kind of.
I've had that experience working with producers more than with directors.
Right.
And, like really long term, 5 years working together with a producer.
That's a long time too, isn't it?
Yeah, who knows the work as intimately as I do. And, I would like to have that with a director too. But,
Right.
I guess it's just, different films evolve in different ways, I mean, it depends it tends to be for a writer that you're going to look for a producer, so it's kind of natural that you have a longer evolution of that relationship with the producer than with the director. unless you really decide to bring a director on a lot sooner. But I mean, other people might start working, other writers might start with a director,
Those relationships are amazingly important. Like, as you go on and you realise how long some of the longer projects take, to survive those relationships and the ups and downs of all that is, like.
But it's amazing how different you can be as people, while admittedly sharing some core tastes.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how different you can be as people while still having a very successful collaboration. I'm what I look for in a collaboration. I mean, it would go for all crew really, not just writers, but certainly cinematographers and editors especially. Is when you have those sort of conversations in a cafe, are they, through that conversation, has something about my understanding of the film deepened? Is the process of interrogating it with this other brain, are we getting to somewhere where the two individual brains wouldn't have got there? And that's the magic of it, because you end up with this inner circle in a project of only about probably 5 people, and it's the whatever's in the middle of those 5 people, the thoughts. It's that the project forms between the brains of those 5 people, and if you're choosing well, hopefully I choose. Well, I've already said it. Yeah, I choose to deepen for those people to help deepen the project and actually to challenge me. I don't feel.
I think that's definitely having people challenge you is a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think you want people just agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Oh.
And certainly with the writer,
because I think it's going to be
absolutely true.
Not at all. From the writer's point of view, the worst thing would be, a director who just goes, okay, great. Should we go and make the film? I mean, I have had that happen a couple of times, and it's not. You think, have you really grasped the material? Because there's a lot here to discuss. I think you want to be really challenged. I think you have to be really challenged as a writer, because or else. It's like you have to really defend every decision that you make. When you do that, you're really challenging your own thinking on it. It's like if someone sort of challenges something, and you might immediately go, oh, God, I don't want to do that. And then you do go away and you think, and it can take a couple of weeks, it can take longer, it can take a whole draft, and then you go, shit, they were right about that. But you've got to have that pushback. It doesn't have to come from the director, but you've got to have it as a writer.
I actually think how you feel emotionally about the material is really important.
Yeah.
Because you intellectualize, that's a great idea, but if you don't feel anything for it, you're not going to, I don't think the public are going to feel anything for it.
No.
There's this kind of, I don't know, I heard this phrase like, no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. No laughter in the writer, no laughter in the reader. I think there's something in that idea, which is that you've got to feel something about it in order to kind of impart that to the rest of the world, or the people watching it or whatever. Otherwise, it's just a kind of exercise. I think you do have to connect with the material if it's going to mean anything to people outside of that, or people outside of you and the film are going to feel anything about it. I don't know why. I think it's kind of a weird, mysterious thing. But
well, the other thing is that, your average feature film, how long does it take? 5, 6, 7 years from the time you start writing it to get it to the screen. So the majority of that time it's about the process. So if you're not enjoying the process, if that's just a battle, if you're locking horns or whatever, then what are you really taking out of it? Because the end result, you want it to be this great film that everyone's going to love and it's going to get into festivals and all of that, but if you haven't actually had a very good time getting there, your life's going to be a misery because it's such
I've
a
been
long
there. I've had a
process.
miserable time making stuff, and it's
Yeah.
been good.
Yeah.
What's come out of it, but
Yeah.
it's funny. Like it started with great promise, but the long period of the relationship is really testing. And then in the end, it all kind of came together. But nobody, and that's part of the resilience of the team because nobody was prepared to let it,
Die.
and
Yeah.
be bad. You know,
Yeah.
so there was that
Yeah.
sense of. So
Yeah.
that was the team at odds, but still serving a
So-
common
Oh,
goal.
no, totally. If it's all too, I'm really suspicious when people tell me that
It's gone
the
really
shoot's gone
well.
really well.
Yeah.
No one argued.
had a
Everybody
great
laughed all the
time,
way
and-
through it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. It's
really
like
funny.
invariably it's a really shit film, and you know I always feel slightly nervous if I have even one good day on set, which doesn't happen very often. But and you know literally we'll sort of inject like I'd like things to have a bit of. You know, and actually, you get that automatically in New Zealand films anyway because there's never enough time, never enough money.
Yeah.
So you always you're not fighting with each other, but you're sort of fighting against this greater force, which is the budget and the schedule.
the producer.
And I think that not generally, but a little bit. It depends. Yeah.
They're the ones telling you.
Yeah, but in terms of the the writer director relationship, which I don't think should be lovey-dovey as well. You should be having kind of battles in the you should be fighting to make the core of this thing as great as it can be. I think the key for me always, actually with any relationship, professional or otherwise, is if there's respect at the core of that relationship for each other, and for each, in the case of a professional relationship, for each other's skills and head. If that respect exists and is deep and deepens as you go through the process, even if you don't agree on everything, because you won't, you'll be fine. And as soon as you feel, and I think you've sort of got to cherish that relationship and nurture it as well, and not be disrespectful. But I think what you need to do really is choose a collaborator who you will respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But also who you can be really robust with, so it's...
And also embrace the different perspectives, it seems, to
that's
try and
right.
use that to the advantage of the project. The fact that there is
Yeah.
that tension,
Because-
rather than making that tension trauma, making it really creative and something that works towards,
Yeah, because you never. I mean, there was a suggestion in the blurb for this session that it was either the director's vision or the writer's vision that gets through, and I mean, we've all got vision, and it's everyone's vision, particularly the directors and the writers. But I think in the end, it's like you've got this one of those coloured Venn diagrams where the director's the red and the writer's the blue and probably the editor's the green, and I'm bad with colour, so I don't know what's in the middle. But the bit,
black.
whatever's in the middle, the white bit in the middle is where the film should be, because that's the bit where everyone agrees. Even though you've got different tastes, you all agree on this stuff, and the film evolves through that. And so I love that there's difference that sits there, as long as it's, I don't know, as long as people are asking questions and interrogating and they care.
Yeah, and the material gets better. Like,
Yeah.
you look at it, like everybody gets excited when it gets better.
Yeah.
Better is subjective sometimes.
No, that's true. That's true. That is true.
So maybe let's just come back, I guess, to the question of the seminar before we wrap up and open it up to some questions. What would be, for each of you, the things that you'd look for in the best kind of relationship, where you felt that, for you, where you felt that your voice was heard, but that you didn't, you feel okay about handing it over, and what are you looking for in the ideal relationship? And same with you guys. What are the things that are important to you?
Pretty much what Rob's just been talking about,
Right.
really. That sort of mutual respect would have to be like really high up there. And the feeling that that you're being pushed, that you're being pushed creatively. I would hate to have the feeling that you're kind of leading it, and that there's just not, that it's an unequal relationship. I guess it's like, you know, any sort of relationship, there's got to be, you got to be sort of met, you know, creatively, and just challenged.
So a strong core team that's constantly questioning,
Yeah,
pushing forward.
and I think, you know, that really does happen when you have respect for the people. You can have some big arguments, you know, but if you respect them, it's fine, because it's going to stay. I mean, a lot of the time what you're arguing about, it's made up stuff. It doesn't actually exist. It's like you're arguing about, yeah, but she wouldn't say that because da 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 da. And you've got to stop and go, well, here we are getting quite heated about this or whatever. It's like, well, these people actually don't exist. This is just pretend. So, yeah. Perspective. Putting it in perspective.
Yeah. Chris, do you want to add?
Yeah, I think trust is a pretty fundamental thing, but what I get excited by is talent and people who inspire me and people who surprise me, you know, like, so I'm like, that's where I get excited, whether it's an actor or a writer or DOP or whatever, but that's the excitement of doing the job in a way, is that people surprise you, and you know, you go into an edit and you think it's going to be this, and somebody surprises you. You think an actor's going to do this, and they turn up that, and it's like those are the moments you live for, and yeah. So I suppose that's
and that's
because most of directing, I find, I dread it. Because it's actually like it's like you've got so much to do in a day, and your day is like turning up on set, and it's all practical decisions, and the moments of joy in it are when an actor surprises you, or this comes together really well, or the sun shines at the right time, or you know, and they're few and far between, because most of it's getting through it, and I actually enjoy the edit the most. I mean, I enjoyed the working out the idea, but the shooting is actually generally the most stressful and not, to me, enjoyable process of, you know, it's like being on set. It's not like we can do this 100 times, different, what should we do now, you know? It's not, there's like real pressure on you to deliver or get it in the can or whatever. And it's quite, I don't know. I do like being at the point where you put together what you've collected.
And tell the story in the cutting room. Yeah.
Anyway,
Anything that
digress.
you want to add, Rob? Or?
No, not to that question. I think,
Great. Well, are there any questions from people in the audience? I'd like to ask anyone here. So.
Dianne was talking about approaching potential collaborators, directors and producers early as a writer, but surely you have to be reasonably established as a writer for a producer or a director to take you seriously, to even consider having a collaboration with you, particularly if the script is in just a very raw stage or even just a treatment stage.
I guess it's about finding collaborators who are kind of at the same career stage as you are. I mean, if you're sort of like really just embarking on your career and you're wanting, you know, a producer to come on who's very established and experienced to come on board at a very early stage, it's going to be a much harder ask. I mean, so I think that's something, to bear in mind. I mean, I guess I've worked two different ways. You know, one is like as a not very experienced writer to come up with an idea and know that I'm going to work really hard at that idea, like through a number of drafts to get it to a stage where I can take it out to try and hook a director who's like maybe made, you know, a lot of films, or maybe they're like, you know, just far more experienced than I am, because that's going to be really good for my career. that's one approach. Work real hard at it, get it as good as you can. The other approach is to, just simply find people that you really like and trust and respect and all, that are at the same level. So, a lot of writers, seem to think it's incredibly hard to get producers to read your work, but actually most producers that I know are like, give me scripts. So, it's simply finding people that are at the right level, I think. So, younger, up-and-coming producers are always going to be looking for good work.
Yeah, especially if it's good feature work, because there's a decent bunch of producers who've made. It's really worth, if you're relatively early stage and you're thinking about a producer, looking at producers who are consistently producing good short films, because they're often hooked in with directors who are the up and coming directors, and they're the ones that most often get films made in New Zealand, because that's the sort of budget level that we can afford. And they're also at a point where they are wanting to see material, to read material, and they've usually got time. The problem with, of course, the really experienced, the really is they're usually super busy, and it's even if they do come on board, sometimes you don't get a lot of their time. The thing to remember as well with a producer relationship is that if the idea is really good and the film kind of starts to turn into something, if it turns into something that's bigger than that producer, inevitably another producer will come on board as well, and that happens often actually with either co-producing or an executive producer comes on to sort of add weight to the project. So, I think that these relationships should be, wherever possible, very natural. My producer on Sarkies, Lisa Chatfield, was my producer on 2 of my short films, because I just sort of had met her, worked with her at a production company I was working for. She came in as a sort of a paid intern, and she was just awesome. So I sort of asked her, well, do you want to produce, I'm making a short film this summer, do you want to produce it? And a relationship just evolves, and it evolves very naturally because we are at about the same level, both very hungry, both very driven, both smart, but you're not, I don't know, I think we often look at producers up there, and what you want, particularly as a writer, is you want a producer who's got the time to engage with you, I think. And the other thing in relation to that is that if the idea, I think it's really good to start involving a producer, a director or someone relatively early, not necessarily to drag them onto the project, but to give you a sense of whether this is actually worth spending your time on. Because it's one of the things that I really appreciate, and I know it's one of the reasons that I've kind of made some good work, is because I have core people that I work with that are questioning me at a very, very early stage. So the shit falls to the ground, because they're asking questions. They're forcing me to ask questions, And so I think if you know someone like that, and they don't have to end up kind of coming on the journey with you necessarily, but if you know someone like that who's just got a really sharp story mind on them, they're probably your most valuable asset, because then you can keep coming back to them with those questions, and it'll raise your game.
And there are those producers who are good at that, and then there's those producers who aren't good at that.
Yeah.
And I also think, I reckon if you're inexperienced and you've got a really good idea, a producer will recognise a really good idea and then slowly elbow you out of the equation.
Really?
I reckon. Well, they just know they haven't got the experience to make that idea what it should be and that what they can see. So I don't think they've necessarily. Well, it might be accepted. Maybe I'm being cynical, but I'm thinking you've got a great idea, but what we need is some experience in here, so bring on somebody else with experience. It might be an experienced director to work with or something. It doesn't necessarily mean sideline you, but I would think, you know, if you've got no writing ability really, but a great idea, somebody will recognise the great idea and want it.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I think also in New Zealand, if you've got emerging writing ability, then someone might try and nurture you.
Like mentor you or something.
Yeah, I was thinking that's what you were. I thought that's what you were leading up to. Then they'll take you in and nurture you. They're going to elbow you out of the way.
Jesus.
I mean, that can
That's
happen.
a terrible. What does that say about me?
I don't know.
No, but the other thing that I would say is that I agree, like Rob says, you know, test your idea with a producer, you know, like they're going to give you a reality check, is this worth pursuing, whatever. But there's something also about, if you've got an idea you feel really strongly about and it means something to you, you owe it to yourself to make it as good as you can make it, or write it, before you show anyone, because you can only push that, you know, car out into the showroom once before everybody feels, oh, I've read that already. And it's really hard to come back and say, oh, it's a different colour now and it's got some new additions and stuff, and it's like, well, I've already read that. It's hard to get people to have a second look. So if they are excited by the first time they ever read it, even if there's some flaws in it, but you've really worked it hard, and I actually think, you know, rewriting, it's worth testing it with people that you know before you take it to the business or the industry a little bit. So you have that confidence a little.
But not your mum.
Yeah, but
No,
people
but
you
that's
can
not
trust.
like
but spinning a story to someone.
Yeah, and they go,
spinning a
"Oh,
tale
yeah.
to someone to a friend, you know, a critical friend, you know, in a quiet corner of a pub is, you know, you learn so much from doing that, and it's terrifying because, I mean, I get slightly terrified just telling stories to my son because he's starting to get, you know, bored. Where he's like, oh shit, I got to better make some twists, sort of, you know, twist this, and how am I going to reincorporate that? Oh shit, I have to. But that process of kind of telling your story to someone else before it's fully formed actually evolves the story, and it's sort of in a way that kind of gets it out of your head, but still keeps it safe. I think there's a combination of those, because it's important to. I mean, these stories that we have in our heads, they're so. I don't know, sort of. I mean, they're actually nothing, are they? They're synapses is firing.
Yeah.
They're
Ethereal. They're just a thought that you know. I always love that great story of whoever wrote, you guys will know, American Beauty, who said the inspiration.
Alan Hall.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Who said the inspiration from it was just one day just watching a plastic, you know, scenes in the film, plastic bag. You know, I mean, you would not think that was an idea for an amazing feature film, but it was in his head, because that moment that he watched that bag floating in the wind and saw sort of the beauty and also kind of the ugliness of that, something formed. You know, and I think if he'd gone to the pub and told his best mate that, oh, I've got this great idea for a film, it's something about a plastic bag, you know, like American Beauty just wouldn't have happened, but he didn't. But, you know, so I think you've kind of like, you evolve it up here, and I scribble away, and then at a point where you start to feel like, oh, I think there's something here, you know, just sort of, you know, spin a yarn to someone you trust. Even if it's half a yarn, they'll tell you.
Actually, it's a really good point. I mean, I've found when I've done that, actually, like if you're taking a road trip with someone, that's perfect. Because they're captive, they can't run away. They've got to sit and listen to your story. But as you're telling it, you know when you've hit a bit of a soft spot, because they'll either ask a question or go, or else you'll just know yourself. They don't even have to say, but you'll know that you're fudging something. And it's actually when you verbalise it that you realise. You can hide a lot when you're writing.
Another question? Yeah.
I was just wondering if the solution to a lot of the writers' problems of making sure that all the story beats are there at the end, or make sure they're there at the end, is to make sure you've got a producer of some kind after your name.
Easier said than done. I mean, one thing I guess that I've learned over the last 5 years is that producers actually have quite a lot of skills that I don't, and they're not that keen to give away producer credit, you know. And I think there's other ways that you can do it without necessarily having to do that. I mean, in the contract for the film that I've just made, or has just been made, I'm consulted on cast, on choice of director, and at the edit stage. So it's in the contract, you know. But that doesn't mean to say that I got to have a producer credit to get that. So, in an ideal world, yeah. And it happens, you know, obviously with TV more than with film,
TV is definitely
you know.
a writer's
Yeah.
medium.
Yeah,
You know,
it
the-
works so well for writers.
Yeah.
But in TV, they do actually do the producing role if they get that
Yeah.
credit
Yeah.
as well. So it is a whole other bag of skill sets that, and you know, in TV, those two things go together
Yeah.
more often, I think. But you know,
Yeah.
they do the producing as well.
They are actually the key people.
Yeah.
I just noticed that, you know, some of the back winners and
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Oh,
They're all
yeah,
writers.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're the ideas people and the creators of the show often are the writers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But these were films.
These were films, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
actually,
Well, I
I
think
got a
it's,
producer's
you know-
credit on
Yes.
Who's that?
on Anthony Carpenter.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
yeah.
did. He did.
Yeah,
Well
and
done.
that's working with
Yeah.
really big producers,
Yeah.
Tim Bevan. And,
but I reckon that's probably he's going this, and they're going, this is great, and he's going, well, I'm guessing this, but
Yeah.
he's going, well, if you really want to do it, this
Give
is
me
the
that,
deal,
yeah.
or his agent is,
it's a
Yeah.
power game at that
Yeah.
level, isn't it?
yeah.
It's a question of having an agent probably who's going to.
And something that
Battle
people
for that.
want enough.
Yeah,
And something, you know, that
Yeah,
they
that's
want,
right,
They
they
want
really
it, yeah.
they wanted
really want
enough to give him that, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah. But yeah, good point.
But he had a book. So if they wanted that story,
They had
and
to
they already
go.
liked the script.
He had
they
the rights to
yeah,
it.
so
Yeah. That's right,
He
big
spent
difference.
sort of 17 years winning the
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
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 So he
And
had
that,
the trust.
so that's
Yeah.
and that's definitely, you know,
Yeah.
like a producer sort of role. So,
Yeah. And I'm sure that would have been Anthony's motivation for getting that producer role was to make sure
Protect the
To
story.
protect the story,
Yeah.
Not just
Yeah.
to get the name, I think.
No, protect the
No,
relationship that he had
protect
built
the-
up as well would have been
With-
important.
Yeah.
That was a long haul, was my
Yeah.
point there.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, that wasn't 5 years, it was more like
Yeah.
getting on 20. From when he had
Amazing.
30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, tenacity.
Yeah, I got a question.
Often you think that's a long time, and then you find yourself in a similar situation and think, wow. So,
So Diana, when you say you have the script finished, you have everything, what do you have together with the script? You don't do the budgeting, the scheduling, and pitch it to the producer.
Oh no. All they're interested in is the story.
It's the story.
No.
But when pitching it to the producer, how do you go about that? Do you come up with like a little visual presentation to show them?
No. Sit down across a table and get good at
Verbalising
at
the story.
verbalising it very succinctly.
Yeah.
And but you know, I would have maybe it would depend how far I've taken it. I mean, often just a verbal chat. Sometimes I might have a short synopsis or something to be able to give them to
So they
take
can
away.
read over first
Yeah.
and go through it and understand it.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the first part of the question? I'm
Just the
trying
pitch.
Yeah.
When you drop it on their table or when you send them an email.
Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Like-
Good to have an idea of who the audience is.
Yeah.
Because producers like
Because
to
they
know,
want to know who the
what you're
audience is,
thinking
yeah.
there. But yeah, I mean, basically, and to be realistic, I mean, you know, it's no point going pitching a small up-and-coming New Zealand producer who hasn't got that much experience, something that clearly is going to need $20 million to make it work, you know, so it's just about fit
Yes.
again. But I think it's just always about having a conversation.
Just
And-
getting them one-on-one basis.
Yeah, and a little bit kind of like getting off the back foot a little bit. You know, I used to be so terrified of so terrified of pitching
Yeah.
that I actually went to see a therapist about it. Oh, that should have been my thing that nobody knows. I knew I was going to say something like that. No, but I did. I felt so terrified about pitching that, and I realised I was going to have to get really good at it. So I went and saw a cognitive behavioural therapist, and I paid through my business because I thought this is actually a skill that I need to get me over my complete terror of talking to producers. And it sort of worked. Yeah, but no, I mean other people are just more naturally a bit more confident.
Do people in New Zealand pitch in the same way they would in the States?
Oh no, I don't think so.
I think they sit down and talk about what they're
But
doing.
I think that's the thing.
Generally.
If you think about it in terms of like, oh, I've got to go on pitch and it's going to be like some sort of performance. I mean, I would never be able to do that in a million years. So, you know, I just like, you got to just think it's just a chat about this really cool idea that you've got and your natural enthusiasm. Just kind of carry it.
More like talking to a friend, really.
Yeah.
Friend that you don't.
A friend that you don't know.
You want to know
A friend that,
It's one of the fun for the writer's guild actually, because if there's one thing that Stephen Gadaway will do if you go into his office is he will drill you so that when anyone asks you a question about your story, you have the answer.
That's
you
right.
know what the log line is, what do you mean, who's your audience. He will practice that with you.
Join the
On
writer's
first
guild.
Friday drinks, and tell him you've got a project, he'll fire that at you.
Yeah.
And get some really good practice.
I mean, totally log lines. I didn't even know what a log line was until I'd been writing for years, you know, and it's like,
But there is lots of that information on the Writers Guild website as
Yeah.
well, all of that stuff. So
that seed draft.
if you're wanting to pitch and learn that stuff, you should be a member and you should go and use the resources, you know. One more question, you've got a question, and we'll finish.
My question was actually about people who, when you're wearing the writer and director hat, and how you've been talking about the challenge and then the balance and the fresh eyes and that, when you don't have that extra step, how do you get like the script, get the nice push to get it as far as you need it to go, and the challenge, and then also step out of it enough to make sure that you're telling it with clarity and that you're not thinking something's coming through that isn't because you just know it so well. How do you find that balance?
Well, it's a good question because I think it's really actually very difficult, and I try and make a conscious head shift, I suppose, when I put on a different hat, when I move into it and into the directing phase, to sort of stop, because I find my mind's working different. I'm sort of a different person when I'm thinking about writing, because I'm thinking about structure and how the dialogue's working. I'm thinking about a whole bunch of things, and the great thing is the early stage of directing, for a little bit you can sort of think about kind of visuals, and I kind of use the sort of mine this. My process is to to do almost a visual treatment, not even treatment, a visual kind of collage of every scene in the film. Just images from anywhere, art, it's everywhere, anywhere and everywhere, photography, and I'll just go through a phase, and I can do it in a week, where I'll just collect images, and without knowing what they mean to me necessarily, but having a sense that something about that image relates to that scene, and I find that process just sort of it's just shaking up your head a bit and making you think a little bit differently, and then that kind of knocks me into the sort of the directing phase.
Do you do that while you're writing, or?
No, I don't do it. No, I'm very. I mean, sometimes there's some crossover, of course, if you've got to do a kind of late writing, close to production. But it's no, definitely not. I sometimes look at images while I'm working at the writing phase to like just a few images that might inspire you and give you a sense of kind of a tone, but I'm actually fearful, and I make sure that I don't start, because it's really fun, that phase that I've just described. I make sure I don't start that until I know the film is actually happening. So that's like the reward. And at the point I know the film is actually happening, then it's sort of a reward. It's a reward, and but it's designed to kind of make me kind of think differently about shift gear. It's, which, however you do it, I think it's important to find a way to.
Just like going on from that, sorry. Then when you're entering the edit process, you throw your script away when you wrote the script. Do you find that you have to then reshape yourself in the editing process so that you're not addressing the script? You've forgotten that bit and you're. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. It's really easy. It's really easy because when you see the first assembly, which is pretty much exactly what the script was, it's always the most horrific thing you have ever seen, and you would never want anyone else to ever see anything that was like that. And I'm not joking. Every single time, it's horrific. And I work with good editors, and it's supposed to be horrific, because it's supposed to just be this is this is in the order that you shot it, and this is the, it's never, it's. Is it horrific for you, Chris?
Yeah, it is.
It the same?
But I reckon editors have this plan, which is this is what you wanted, and now we can do something with it.
Yeah, now I can work my magic.
It's like.
But because you see it, and the reason that it's horrific, but it's also terrifying to see a first assembly, is because you kind of watch this thing, even if it's a little bit long, and it's always quite long. You watch it and you go, shit, there's every scene in the film, there's every word of dialogue that was written. I trusted the editor to make choices on performance, so probably generally it's the good performances. Sometimes that there's better because you remember the day, but and it's not a film. It's not. It's nowhere near a film. And so at that point, well, let's just chuck the script away, and what I do at that point is because I've learned to not feel deeply depressed now. And what I do at that point is I kind of sort of look at the positive and go, well, what part of that feels like it might be the film, and sometimes there's as an example. An example would be Out of the Blue. I don't know how many of you have seen that. The Aaron Moana film, did quite a while ago now. There was a scene in it where David Gray was sort of tuning his radio, sort of a nighttime scene, and he was sort of tuning through kind of the making all the strange sounds, radio making all the strange sounds that radios make between stations, and he had cut that scene in a way that it just totally took me into the psychological headspace of this guy sort of between worlds, and it was just fantastic, right? Nothing else was fantastic, right? And I literally went at the end of the screening, that scene, if we can make the film not feel like that scene, but you know what I mean, sort of get to that scene, and and make the film as good as that scene, we'll really have something. And then you just sort of go and do that.
See, I think you were saying you have a script and there's beats missing, and you look at the but I think directors feel that sometimes, like there's something that things in the edit suddenly are like.
Well, it's such an instinctual process, isn't it? At every stage, you kind of, is my gut feeling like this is right or not right? Yeah. Is it working? Is it not working? It's easier to tell when it's in the edit stage because it's all there.
That's true. That's what you're going to work with.
Yeah. So I guess the answer is to try and work with people who have the same gut responses to the material in the beginning that you do. To try and find that commonality of.
Or again back to the challenge thing. Like they do challenge you. You go, sometimes the editors
not without challenge, but
that's true.
To something tonal.
That's right. I think there is
about values that you talked about.
But it is sort of something that's so hard to nail down as to what. I remember Galen Preston actually talking about the it. What is the it that you're trying to actually
And it probably is-
capture and hold and pass on. She's going, you've got this thing, let's just call it the it, and you know, it's here somewhere. In my mind, it might hopefully be somewhere, you know, in script, and you know, with the script and me talking, I'm trying to pass it on, you know, to you, and then you're going to try and pass that on to the actors, and you know, the cinematographer, and then the editor, and it's like, how do you define what it is? And it's probably actually what you were talking about, Rob, at the centre of that, you know, thing with the 5 key people coming together. Whatever, but how you would define that. And actually, speaker, I don't know.
And the irony is that if you do define it too clearly, too early, it's probably not very interesting.
No.
You know, it's like, you know, and there are plenty of Hollywood films that are just sort of, you know, high concept, or just, you know, where you watch the film, or you start to watch the film, and generally you stop after about 10 minutes because it's not, but you start to watch the film and you go, I can hear the pitch, I know the pitch for this, and I've seen the film, I don't need to see, you know, there's no actual kind of
mystery.
or that thing, that nuclei isn't fizzing, it's just there. and
Yeah.
we want it to fizz. we want it to fizz. Whatever it is.
Such a fantastic conversation about the nebulous and murky territory that is the director-writer relationship, but also the fabulous and magical territory, I think.
I suddenly thought that what somebody should do is invent an app like Tinder for producers, writers and directors. And you just have this, like, you can go through it and pick who you want and answer a few questions, put your pitch in and see who comes together.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's great. And does it matter that they have to be close to you?
Yeah.
No, just put the span out worldwide.
I've been standing just here thinking, oh, how am I going to sum this up? And both Caroline and the panel, I think, just did it all for me. There have been so many insightful gems tonight in terms of the conversation from these very experienced practitioners, writers and directors about this challenge, and also this wonderful collaborative, creative process that occurs when things gel. And it is this example that Rob gave about these 3 discs of colours and that white spot in the middle, where everybody's fighting for the essence of the story, and they're fighting to make the film better. And I think that really is about that writer and director collaboration. And, you know, maybe the producer's got something to add to that too.
Oh yeah, big time. Big time. Yeah.
But that, to me, seemed to be the real key takeout from this evening's discussion. So I would like to thank writer and director Rob Sarkies, writer and director Chris Dudman, the fantastic writer Dianne Taylor, and Caroline Grose for really facilitating what I thought was a wonderful discussion about this topic. So thank you very much, and I'd like to ask you.